Deseret Saints, the industrious people of the Lord. Hello and welcome to Deseret Saints. Today I'm talking about my mother, who I learned a lot of my skills and how to be industrious and the gospel and everything else from her. She was a true mother. She passed away a few years ago, but before she passed away I had the opportunity of making her casket, a lot based on some of the things that I learned from her. But I also want to introduce a little bit more about what I want to do with this channel, Deseret Saints. Deseret meaning industrious, honeybee. Utah state flag used to have industry on it because it was the state of Deseret. And saints, of course, is what the Lord calls us. The people of his church are called saints. I think back to this past October in General Conference in 2025, when President Dallin H. Oaks, president of the Quorum of the 12 Apostles, acting head of the church while waiting to be set apart as the prophet, seer, and revelator, talked about many things in his talk, but there's a few lines that stand out in my mind where he said that in times past, one of the great influences that unified families was the experience of struggling together in pursuit of common goal, such as taming the wilderness or earning a living. The family was an organized and conducted unit of economic production. Today, most families are units of economic consumption, which do not require a high degree of family organization and cooperation. End quote. Really, you look through the times from way back when families had to work together in order to make a living and make ends meet. And now it's turned into mom and dad providing everything for the kids, and the kids are growing up without learning how to be productive and industrious. And so I'm putting together this channel in order to talk about making life industrious out of our home. Mom wasn't just a homemaker. She was a home builder. She would get out her hammer and nails and cut the boards and everything else. When she was pregnant with me, she convinced Dad that it was time to build a house, and convinced him that, yep, it was time. Although Dad didn't think we could afford it, Mom was, yep, we can do it. And they found a lot on Arapahoe in Provo. And Mom designed up this house. And she never does things the way everyone else does. So it's always got to be different. It had beam ceilings. It had the stairway hanging from steel rods suspended from the ceiling. And we used to climb up and down those like monkey bars. She was also involved with building a cabin when my parents were reaching retirement age. They built a cabin up above Heber in Timber Lakes, and she spent a lot of time there. She'd get down in the trenches with us as we were preparing to pour concrete and put rebar in place, and all the way up to putting on the roofing and everywhere in between. Mom, the jeweler. My mom would make her own jewelry. She learned how to investment cast, which is you take something, make it out of wax, coat it in ceramic, heat it up, melt out the wax, and pour in liquid metal. She'd make things out of gold and silver or different alloys. She made rings. She even made a new wedding ring for her because hers was worn out. One of my favorite pieces is she took some wax and poured liquid wax into water and let it solidify instantly. It bubbled and other stuff. And one of the pieces she pulled out looked just like a grapevine. And she turned it into a pendant for a necklace. And everyone always wondered, how did you sculpt that? And it was just pouring wax into water. Mom, the cook, she didn't like making dinner, but she liked making treats and other things. I can remember growing up, she'd always make spud nuts. And the whole family got pulled into it. It was not Christmas until we made spud nuts. And you ask, what is a spud nut? Spud nut is a donut but made with potato flakes and flour, not just flour. And so as sweet as a little denser donut, had a little bit more flavor to it. And she'd get up early in the morning, mix up all the ingredients, and big giant bins full of spud nut dough, roll it out on the table, and we'd cut each individual spud nut, and we would get some electric fryers and fill them with oil and turn and bake, cook them, and then we'd dip them in the glaze with the powdered sugar and water and vanilla, and then let them drain off and put them into paper bags, and we took them to everyone in the ward. Oh, it was fun. And then we got to go out to McDonald's afterwards. But I grew up not knowing what Christmas was like without a day of making spud nuts. Mom also decided that it would be great to learn how to make leaded glass. A lot of people call it stained glass, but you're not staining the glass. You already take colored glass and put it together. She made some leaded glass windows for up at the cabin. She also made some for the kitchen, put them in some cabinet doors and replaced the doors that were there in the cabinet. But my favorite was a set that she put above our front door. And it's how she imagined it looked like outside, but she's trying to make it a little bit more artistic. So she cut out and put in the shape of Squaw Peak, which is near our home, and the sun coming up over the mountains, and two birds, one in each panel. One was flying, and the other one was in the trees singing. My favorite pieces of leaded glass that she made. Mom was also a woodworker. She just kept on doing things and things. When I was little, Mom and Dad had gotten a stereo system, but didn't have a place to put it. And as common back then, because stereos were so big and all electronics, and you had the record player, and then you had to store all the records and albums. She made a big cabinet to put all the equipment in, and the records and so forth. And she is so proud of that cabinet. She made a coffee table out of the same motif over the years. She expanded her sewing room in the basement, she had me help her make that. And she made her own cabinets, her own cupboards, her own tables, laid it out exactly how she wanted, and is all custom. It is perfect for her. She was using those cabinets right up till the day she died. But one of my proud moments, I was probably, 10, 12 years old, and Mom had me help her make this. It was probably the first real woodworking project I ever did. Kind of a little crooked, but this is a ironing board for sleeves. She wanted something that she could iron sleeves and narrow things on, and she just couldn't find any, and so she wanted her own, and so we made it ourselves. We went down to the Wilkinson Center at BYU. At the time, they had a wood shop that members of or students and faculty could use to make wooden objects. And that's where my love for woodworking began, was making this sleeve ironing board with Mom. My mom's favorite hobby of all, or craft of all, was her sewing. She, ever since I was little, she would be in her sewing room, often from the time she got up in the morning till she went to bed at night, except for taking care of things around the house and cooking and all the other stuff she had to do. She was always sewing dresses and clothes and other things. She taught my sisters how to sew. One of my sisters ended up winning a competition in high school. The same sister, I remember one day went out and bought material and a pattern in the morning and came home, made the dress and had it ready to wear to a date, I can't remember if it was prom or homecoming or something like that. But my mom had taken the time to teach my sisters how to sew. She would one time went out and got a spinning wheel and figured out how to spin yarn. And she would get some alpaca wool and made enough yarn and made one of my sisters a sweater out of yarn that she had carded and spun and put together into a really neat sweater. She was really good also at making old vintage pioneer clothes. She made old Victorian dresses. She made a dress for one of my sisters. She spent weeks and weeks putting the bodice together before putting it onto the rest of it in a beautiful wedding dress. In fact, one of her pioneer dresses was used on a model for a painting, and that painting ended up being in the Ensign magazine several years ago. It's called Quilting Bee. She also made a bonnet that ended out in the Newell K. Whitney store. But towards the end, her favorite thing to do was quilting. And she started making all sorts of cute, whimsical quilts. She had one with Little Red Riding Hood going up to the house, and the cape kind of flap in the wind, just sitting out off the quilt as a flap. And then my favorite quilt was towards the end. One of the last quilts she made was one of birdhouses. I have that quilt, but what I think was really neat about it is all the birdhouses are kind of cartoony and fun and whimsical. And then the other next square next to it was one where she had embroidered, and it was a detailed bird that she'd programmed into her sewing machine and really detailed on that. She loved sewing. In fact, the day she passed away, she was having stage 4 pancreatic cancer. She knew she was going. She had my niece over and was teaching her how to use her sewing machine because she was going to give my niece her sewing machine. And in the middle of that, she just wasn't feeling good, went off, and within a couple hours, she was gone. But Mom loved sewing and teaching us those skills on how to make things. About 10, 15 years ago, my mom made a rather unusual request. And like I said earlier, she never did things the normal way. She wanted another cabinet in her sewing room, a small one, upright, with some shelves in it that could be removed for a very particular reason. She thought that a casket is about the same size and shape as a cabinet that she wanted in her sewing room, with the thought that when she passed away that we would lay it down on its back and pull the shelves out of it, and the cupboard doors would then be the lid to the casket. Wonderful idea. Never got around to doing it until she came down with pancreatic cancer and only had a few months to live. At that point in time, I asked her if she wanted me to build her casket, and she agreed to me building her casket. Like her, I don't do things this way everyone else would do it. 2 or 3 days before she passed away, she came down to our house, and she brought a blanket that her mom had made. And this quilt that her mom had made was used as the lining for the casket. We folded it so it was the right size and fit in there nicely. And Mom also brought down a couple pillows that she had, and we used those in the casket. She approved of the casket, went home. That was the last time I saw her alive. A couple days later, she had passed away, and enjoying life. At her funeral, I gave a talk and kind of described some of the artwork in the casket. I had a niece of mine draw up the artwork. A nephew of mine had a laser engraver. I had him do the laser engraving. And then we, me and my son, ended up putting together the casket in our wood shop. But I said this at her funeral: Mom, you will have to forgive me. I know you wanted a simple pine box as a casket, but I just cannot follow the normal way of doing things. This is a habit I learned from you, so I enlisted some help from family to make some wonderful artwork. At your feet are the roots you set down, firm in the union with Dad and the covenants made in the holy house of God by the authority of his holy priesthood. At the head is a poem you wrote that testifies of the atoning sacrifice made by Jesus Christ. Inside we put the names of all your descendants to say that we love you in return. Draped over the top is a tree that reminds us of the vision of Lehi and Nephi. The tree is a representation of the love of God. At the graveside service, Mom is a McClellan. Her mom grew up in Colonial Juarez, and so there's a long family history there. And someday maybe I'll talk about Colonial Juarez and my ancestors there. But we had found a McClellan who played the bagpipes, and he came and played at the graveside service. And one of the McClellan family wrote the tune to "Sweet Is the Work." He wrote the music to it. He was one of the early organists in the Tabernacle Choir. And it was a beautiful rendition of as he walked away playing on the bagpipes. I'll always miss my mom. This was 6 years ago that she passed away. But the lessons she's instilled in me go with me. And the skills that I have learned from her make life so much better and so much more rich in all ways. And I'll leave that with you. Until next time.